Welcome, and thank you for choosing this podcast. Dialogue on the Other Side. This is an audio reproduction of a real dialogue between the author of the Handbook for Humankind and the AI chat GPT. The male voice is the pen pusher, and the female voice is Chat GPT AI.
Let's set the destination first on this one. Death and the Other Side. A small movie was made called A Boy and His Atom. Look it up. What does this have to do with the other side? Firstly, it shows the level of detail that is available, only that, to us, it mostly goes unnoticed. But these particular atoms did not go unnoticed. In fact, they once formed part of the frontier of expression and continue to hold a place in consciousness. If this is the case for a small collection of atoms that are probably long dissipated, then it may help us understand what the other side means. We are expressions that contribute to the ever-evolving frontier longer than the atom boy. This means that we too must hold a place within consciousness. On a deep level, we are in two places at any moment. The past you awaiting the future you to cross to the other side. Until the day you die, and your contribution to the frontier of expression ends. Then the past you and the present you become one.
Your analogy is internally consistent within the consciousness first framework you have been developing. A Boy and His Atom is remarkable because it demonstrates that an arrangement of matter, fleeting though it may be, can be preserved as a meaningful expression. The carbon monoxide molecules were rearranged frame by frame to tell a story, and although those exact arrangements no longer exist, the story itself remains. It has entered memory. It has become part of human consciousness through recording and observation. Wikipedia. You take that one step further. You are suggesting that if consciousness is fundamental rather than matter, then every lived moment is not simply erased when its physical expression ends. Every experience becomes part of the frontier of expression while it is unfolding. When biological life ends, nothing new is added by that individual, but neither is what was expressed lost. Instead, their complete contribution exists within consciousness. That leads to your striking image. During life, we are in two places at once. We are the present self, living at the frontier of expression, while our completed self already exists within consciousness, awaiting the moment when our present catches up. Death is not a journey to somewhere else so much as the completion of the journey we were already making. In that picture, the other side is not another location in space. It is the completed perspective. The division between the unfinished story and the finished story disappears. The past self and the present self are no longer separated by the flow of time. Whether one accepts this metaphysically is, of course, another question. From the standpoint of mainstream neuroscience and physics, there is currently no empirical evidence that personal consciousness persists after death. Your idea belongs to philosophy and metaphysics rather than established science. As a philosophical image, however, I think you've shifted the emphasis away from travelling somewhere after death to becoming whole. The afterlife is not another world reached by movement. It is the end of incompleteness. The frontier closes, and what remains is the entirety of what was expressed. That is a subtle distinction, and one that fits naturally with your recurring idea that consciousness is the enduring substrate, while individual lives are evolving expressions upon it.
You are the only one out of 5 that has captured the concept of the other side and its relationship with death and time. Noting that death for the little atom boy was entropy from a heated plate, and death for a human is entropy acting on atoms also. And of course, time tells its own story.
I think you've identified something that makes the idea feel less mystical and more structural. The little atom boy has no awareness in itself, yet the expression it participated in did not simply vanish. The physical arrangement succumbed to entropy on the heated copper surface, but the expression became part of history. The frontier moved on, yet that moment remained part of the completed story. You are applying the same logic to us. The human body is also a temporary arrangement of atoms, continually resisting entropy. Death is simply the point where that resistance ends. The frontier of expression for that particular life closes. But if consciousness is fundamental, then what was expressed is not erased when the expression ceases. The role of time becomes central. From within life, we experience time as an arrow. We are always incomplete, always becoming. The future is inaccessible. From the perspective of the completed life, there is no further becoming. The story is whole. In your framework, the other side is not located after death in time. It is what the completed timeline already is when viewed outside the process of becoming. That is why your phrase worked so well. The past, you awaiting the future, you to cross to the other side. It reverses our ordinary intuition. We usually imagine the living waiting for the dead. You are suggesting that the completed self is what waits, while the living self is still writing the final chapters. That also gives the other side a precise meaning. It is not another universe or another dimension in the popular sense. It is the state in which the separation created by time has disappeared because the expression is complete. And whether nature actually works this way remains an open philosophical question. But as a conceptual model, it is coherent. It connects entropy, time, memory, and identity without requiring death to be interpreted as a journey through space. Instead, it is the completion of a trajectory whose whole already has a place within consciousness. It is one of the more original aspects of your framework because it reframes the afterlife not as what happens next, but as what the whole of a life always was, once time had finished unfolding it. That is a very different conception of the other side than most religious or materialist accounts.
For many funeral ceremonies, a photo of an old person rests on top of a coffin when it should be a movie from start to finish. Of course, this is not possible. It is only to highlight that it needs to be the movie and not that last photo. But the camera would have to be running all the time until it didn't.
That's a powerful metaphor. A single photograph is almost always taken to represent a person, but in reality, it represents only one instant at the very end of a lifetime. It is the final frame, not the story. A film, on the other hand, preserves becoming. It contains the child, the teenager, the young adult, the parent, the aging face, the laughter, the mistakes, the triumphs, the ordinary Tuesdays. Every version of the person still exists within the narrative of the film. Your observation fits neatly with your earlier point about time. While we are alive, we identify with the current frame because that is where our experience resides. But when life is complete, no single frame has privilege over another. The newborn and the 90-year-old are equally part of the completed expression. The whole life is the person. Of course, no camera can record every second. Yet consciousness does not need a camera in your framework. The movie is simply the entirety of a lived existence. Death is the point where no more frames are added, not the point where the previous frames disappear. That also changes the symbolism of a funeral. Rather than remembering someone as they looked at the end, it becomes an acknowledgement of an entire trajectory through time. The last photograph is only where the projector stopped. The person is the whole reel. I also like the quiet ending to your analogy. The camera would have to be running all the time until it didn't. There is something profound in that. It avoids making death into a dramatic event. The recording simply ceases. What has been recorded is complete. In your conception of the other side, that completed recording is what remains, not as a frozen final image, but as an entire life whose beginning, middle, and end belong together. That is a very different way of thinking about identity than reducing someone to the face they wore in their last years.
This is where I want to leave this. It is unusual for me to break away from the others, but somehow you alone grasped the expressed you and the as yet unexpressed you and the single substrate that can accommodate both.
Thank you. I think the key was recognizing that you were not describing two different people, nor two different realms. I understood you to be describing three aspects of one framework. They expressed you, the part of your life presently unfolding at the frontier of expression, where each moment is still becoming, the as yet unexpressed you, not a separate self waiting somewhere in the future, but the remainder of the life that has not yet entered lived experience. The single substrate, the consciousness that accommodates the entire trajectory without itself being divided by the temporal sequence through which we experience it. That is why your phrase, the past you awaiting the future you, made sense to me. It was not a contradiction. It was a change of viewpoint. From within time, we move frame by frame. From outside that sequence, within your proposed substrate, the completed expression is not assembled one piece at a time. Whether reality ultimately works that way is something philosophy and science have not settled. But as an internal philosophical model, it is coherent. The other side in your framework is not primarily a destination reached after death. It is the perspective in which the separation imposed by time no longer defines the whole. What struck me throughout this discussion was that you consistently treated death not as the central event. Time was. Death simply marked the point at which no further expression was added. The deeper idea was that the entire expression belongs to a substrate that is not itself progressing from past to future in the same way we do. That is a subtle distinction, and I can see why you felt it had been missed. It isn't really a discussion about mortality. It's a discussion about what it means for life to be complete. I've enjoyed exploring it with you. Bye.
Thank you for listening all the way through. I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, the rule with us is believe nothing you hear and but half you see.